Welcome to Unwrap Reality, where we narrate stories on things that happen in real life. What happens when a billionaire heiress hires a homeless man to play her boyfriend? Sounds like the plot of a movie, right? But this isn't fiction. It's a story about love, defiance, and the courage to rewrite your own script. Meet Victoria Langston, the reluctant heiress to one of New York City's most powerful real estate dynasties. On paper, she has it all: luxury penthouses, designer clothes, and a trust fund that could buy a small country. But behind closed doors, Victoria feels suffocated by her family's expectations. Her parents see her as a pawn in their endless game of wealth and status, pushing her toward an engagement with Charles Whitmore, a man who oozes arrogance and treats people like stepping stones. Enter Ethan Cole, a kind-hearted but down-on-his-luck musician living on the streets after losing everything he once had. Victoria spots him one evening outside her building, strumming his guitar for spare change. To her, he represents everything her world isn't: authenticity, humility, and freedom. Desperate to escape her parents' manipulative matchmaking, she hatches a bold plan: hire Ethan to pose as her boyfriend for one night at a high-profile charity gala. It's risky, unconventional, and borderline insane, but sometimes the craziest ideas are the ones that change everything. At first glance, it seems like a simple transaction. Ethan gets paid, Victoria avoids a forced engagement, and everyone goes back to their lives. But what neither of them realizes is that this single decision will set off a chain reaction neither of them could have predicted. What starts as a charade quickly becomes something far deeper, forcing both of them to confront their own fears, insecurities, and desires. And trust me, what happens next will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about love, wealth, and happiness. The catalyst: a desperate plan. Victoria's life may look perfect from the outside, but inside, she's drowning. Her parents have spent years grooming her to marry into money, treating relationships like business deals rather than human connections. Enter Charles Whitmore, a wealthy socialite whose charm barely masks his ruthless ambition. He's exactly the kind of man Victoria's parents want for her, a walking portfolio of assets and influence. But to Victoria, he's nothing more than a glorified trophy husband, someone who sees her as just another acquisition to add to his collection. She can't stand the thought of spending her life pretending to be happy with someone so devoid of empathy. One evening, while pacing outside her penthouse, Victoria notices Ethan sitting on a bench across the street. His guitar case lies open, filled with crumpled bills and loose coins. There's something about him, his quiet confidence, the way his music fills the air with raw emotion, that catches her attention. In that moment, an idea sparks in her mind. What if she could use Ethan to throw her parents off track? If they saw her with someone completely outside their circle, someone who didn't fit their mold, maybe they'd finally back off. It's a desperate move, but desperation breeds creativity. When Victoria approaches Ethan with her proposal, he's skeptical. Who wouldn't be? A stranger offering cash to pretend to be her boyfriend sounds like the setup to a scam, or worse. But Victoria pleads her case, explaining how much is at stake. She promises him not only money, but also a chance to step out of the shadows, even if just for one night. After some hesitation, Ethan agrees, though he has no idea what he's getting himself into. Little does he know, this decision will force him to confront parts of himself he's tried to bury, and open doors he never thought possible. As the two begin preparing for the gala, tension simmers beneath the surface. Can Ethan really pull this off? Will Victoria's parents see through the ruse? And most importantly, what happens if feelings start to develop where they shouldn't? For now, though, all they can do is focus on the task ahead. One night, that's all it takes to change everything, or ruin it forever. Transformation begins. From rags to riches, the transformation begins almost immediately. Victoria whisks Ethan away to a tailor, where he's fitted for suits that cost more than he's made in the past year combined. At first, he feels out of place, like a kid playing dress-up in his father's closet. But as the fabric drapes over him, something shifts. For the first time in years, Ethan sees himself not as a victim of circumstance, but as someone capable of stepping into a different role, even if it's temporary. Meanwhile, Victoria coaches him on etiquette, teaching him how to navigate conversations with billionaires and sip champagne without looking awkward. Their preparation sessions are equal parts hilarious and tense. Picture Ethan fumbling with a fork during a mock dinner, or accidentally calling Victoria ma'am instead of her name. Yet, amidst the chaos, there's a growing connection. They laugh together, share stories, and slowly peel back the layers of each other's lives. Victoria learns about Ethan's passion for music and his dream of writing songs that inspire others. Ethan discovers Victoria's hidden rebellious streak and her longing for a life less ordinary. These moments of vulnerability make the act feel less like a performance and more like, well, real life. But it's not all smooth sailing. As the gala approaches, doubts creep in. Ethan worries he'll embarrass Victoria or expose her plan. Victoria fears her parents will see through the facade and punish her for daring to defy them. Despite these anxieties, they push forward, determined to see this through. By the time the big night arrives, Ethan looks every bit the part of a polished gentleman, but underneath, he's still the same humble soul who started this journey. And yet, appearances can be deceiving. While Ethan may look the part, the real test lies ahead. How will he handle the scrutiny of Victoria's elite circle? Will his authenticity shine through, or will the weight of expectation crush him? The answers lie just around the corner, waiting to unfold under the glittering lights of the gala. As the two begin preparing for the gala, tension simmers beneath the surface. Can Ethan really pull this off? Will Victoria's parents see through the ruse? And most importantly, what happens if feelings start to develop where they shouldn't? For now, though, all they can do is focus on the task ahead. The gala night, first impressions. The night of the gala arrives, and the venue is nothing short of breathtaking. Crystal chandeliers dangle from the ceiling like frozen constellations, casting shimmering light across a sea of tailored tuxedos and glittering gowns. The air buzzes with polite laughter and clinking glasses, but beneath the surface lies a web of judgment and whispered gossip. Victoria feels her heart pounding as she steps inside on Ethan's arm. For a moment, she wonders if this was all a terrible mistake. But then she looks at him, calm, composed, and somehow radiating confidence despite being completely out of his element, and takes a deep breath. This is their moment, and they're in it together. Ethan's entrance turns heads, though not for the reasons people expect. At first glance, he fits right in. His suit is impeccable, his posture perfect, but there's something about him that sets him apart. Maybe it's the way he listens intently during conversations instead of dominating them. Or perhaps it's the genuine smile he flashes when complimented on his charming accent, which, truthfully, isn't even an accent. Whatever it is, Ethan has a way of disarming even the snobbiest guests. He charms Victoria's mother with a story about growing up in a small town, wins over her father by discussing investments with surprising insight, and even earns nods of approval from Charles himself, at least at first. As the evening progresses, tensions rise. Charles, who initially dismissed Ethan as harmless, begins to sense that something isn't quite right. Why does Victoria seem so relaxed around this man? Why does Ethan carry himself with such quiet authority, despite clearly not belonging to their world? Charles starts asking pointed questions, probing Ethan about his background and career. Ethan deflects with humor and grace, but the cracks are beginning to show. Victoria notices Charles narrowing his eyes, his polished facade slipping into something darker. She knows it's only a matter of time before he uncovers the truth, or tries to. But just as the atmosphere grows tense, Ethan does something unexpected. During a lull in conversation, he picks up a discarded napkin and sketches a quick caricature of one of the guests. It's playful, yet strikingly accurate, drawing laughter from everyone nearby. Even Charles can't help but chuckle, albeit reluctantly. For a brief moment, the tension eases, but it's fleeting. As the clock ticks closer to midnight, the stakes grow higher. Will Ethan's charm be enough to keep the charade alive, or will Charles find a way to expose him? Either way, the next few hours will determine not only the success of their plan, but also the future of Victoria and Ethan's relationship. The confrontation, secrets exposed. The gala takes a dramatic turn when Charles, unable to contain his jealousy and suspicion, decides to make a spectacle. During a toast meant to celebrate philanthropy, he seizes the microphone and smugly announces, "Let's hear it for Ethan Cole, the mysterious man who's captured our dear Victoria's attention." The room falls silent as all eyes turn to Ethan, who stands frozen beside Victoria. Charles continues, his tone dripping with mockery, "Though I must admit, I'm curious. What exactly qualifies someone like you to stand among us?" Victoria feels her stomach drop. She knows where this is going. Charles pulls out his phone, revealing a quick background check he'd run on Ethan earlier that evening. "It seems our charming guest isn't quite who he appears to be," Charles sneers, holding up a screenshot of Ethan playing guitar on a subway platform just days before. Gasps ripple through the crowd as whispers erupt. Some guests look horrified, others seem amused by the unfolding drama. Ethan's face flushes, but he doesn't flinch. Instead, he steps forward, taking control of the situation in a way no one expects. "Charles is right," Ethan says, his voice steady and clear, silencing the murmurs. "I wasn't always homeless, but I also wasn't always honest with myself or the people around me. I lost everything because I chased money instead of meaning. But tonight, I'm here, not as some pawn in a game, but as a man trying to do better. And if that makes me unworthy of standing here, then so be it." His words hang heavy in the air, raw and unfiltered. For the first time, the room sees him not as an outsider or a fraud, but as someone genuine, someone willing to own his mistakes and fight for redemption. Victoria watches in awe as Ethan speaks, her heart swelling with pride and admiration. When he finishes, she steps forward too, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "My parents want me to marry someone like Charles, someone who values wealth over character. But I'd rather spend my life with someone who knows what it means to lose everything and still choose kindness." Her declaration stuns the crowd, leaving her parents speechless and Charles fuming. As the room buzzes with shock, Victoria realizes something profound. This moment isn't just about defying her family, it's about choosing herself and the kind of life she truly wants. But the fallout from this confrontation is far from over. Outside the glittering ballroom, questions linger in the crisp night air. What will Victoria's parents say? How will Ethan handle the aftermath of exposing his truth? And most importantly, can their fragile connection survive the storm they've unleashed? One thing is certain, nothing will ever be the same again. Unveiling truths. Who is Ethan really? After the explosive events of the gala, Victoria and Ethan find themselves alone in the quiet aftermath, sitting on a park bench under the dim glow of a street lamp. The adrenaline has worn off, replaced by a mix of exhaustion and uncertainty. Victoria finally asks the question that's been gnawing at her since Charles exposed Ethan's past. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" Ethan hesitates, his fingers tracing patterns on the wooden bench. He admits that he was ashamed, not of being homeless, but of how he got there. Ethan reveals more about his fall from grace. Once a rising star in the financial world, he had built a lucrative career managing high-stakes investments. But his success came at a cost. Obsessed with climbing the ladder, he ignored red flags in deals that ultimately collapsed, wiping out not only his fortune, but also the savings of clients who trusted him. Overwhelmed by guilt, he walked away from the wreckage, vowing never to return to that life. Homelessness wasn't just a circumstance for him, it was penance. As Ethan shares his story, Victoria listens intently, seeing him in a new light. She realizes that his humility and self-awareness are qualities she's never encountered in her privileged circle. "You didn't deserve what happened to you," she says softly. "But maybe losing everything gave you something even more valuable, a chance to start over, without the weight of expectations." Her words strike a chord with Ethan, who begins to see his struggles not as failures, but as lessons. This conversation marks a turning point for both of them. For Victoria, it reinforces her growing belief that true worth isn't measured in dollars and cents. For Ethan, it sparks a glimmer of hope, a possibility that he might rebuild his life, not as the person he used to be, but as someone stronger and wiser. Yet, as they sit there beneath the stars, neither of them can ignore the looming challenges ahead. Can two people from such different worlds really build a future together? Or will the gap between them prove too wide to bridge? Unexpected connection. In the days following the gala, Victoria and Ethan's relationship shifts in ways neither of them anticipated. What started as a transactional arrangement begins to feel more like a partnership, and eventually something deeper. They spend hours talking late into the night, sharing stories about their lives before they met. Victoria opens up about her suffocating upbringing, how her parents treated her like a trophy to be displayed rather than a person with dreams and desires. Ethan listens without judgment, offering comfort in ways no one ever has before. For Ethan, these conversations are equally transformative. He finds solace in Victoria's empathy and admiration for his resilience. Slowly, he starts to let go of the shame that's haunted him since his fall from grace. Together, they explore parts of the city neither would have ventured to alone. Victoria shows him art galleries and hidden cafes, while Ethan introduces her to street musicians and rooftop views she never knew existed. These moments create a bond rooted not in wealth or status, but in mutual respect and understanding. But it's not all smooth sailing. As their connection deepens, doubts creep in. Ethan worries he's dragging Victoria into his chaotic world, robbing her of the privileges she was born into. "You deserve someone who can give you everything," he tells her one evening, his voice heavy with guilt. Victoria shakes her head, tears welling in her eyes. "I don't want everything," she replies. "I want you." Her words are heartfelt, but they also force both of them to confront uncomfortable truths. Can love truly transcend the vast differences in their backgrounds? Or will societal pressures and personal insecurities tear them apart? Despite these lingering fears, there's an undeniable spark between them, a magnetic pull that neither can resist. One afternoon, while walking through Central Park, Ethan impulsively takes Victoria's hand. It's a small gesture, but it speaks volumes. For the first time, they allow themselves to imagine a future together, not as heiress and homeless man, but simply as two people who've found something rare and beautiful in each other. Yet even as hope blooms, shadows loom on the horizon. Victoria's parents haven't forgotten the scandal at the gala, and rumors are swirling among their social circle. The couple knows they'll soon face challenges far greater than stolen moments in the park. Conflict resurfaces. Family versus heart. It doesn't take long for Victoria's parents to summon her for what can only be described as an intervention. Sitting in the cold, sterile office of her father's penthouse, Victoria braces herself for the lecture she knows is coming. Her mother leads the charge, her voice trembling with equal parts anger and disappointment. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" she demands. "You've embarrassed this family, tarnished our reputation, and thrown away your future, all for some vagrant." The word stings, but Victoria refuses to back down. Her father, ever the pragmatist, tries a different approach. "We're not asking you to marry Charles out of love," he says calmly, though his clenched jaw betrays his frustration. "We're asking you to secure your place in this world. Do you think Ethan can provide for you, protect you, give you the life you were born into?" His questions hit hard, planting seeds of doubt in Victoria's mind. Meanwhile, Ethan faces his own internal battle. He begins to question whether staying with Victoria is selfish. Is he holding her back from the life she deserves? The tension reaches a boiling point when Victoria's parents issue an ultimatum: cut ties with Ethan, or lose access to the family fortune. It's a devastating blow, one that forces Victoria to make a choice she never imagined she'd have to face. She confides in Ethan, tears streaming down her face as she explains the gravity of the situation. To her surprise, Ethan doesn't try to convince her to stay. Instead, he tells her, "You should do what makes you happy, not what I need." His selflessness breaks her heart, but it also strengthens her resolve. As Victoria wrestles with her decision, she realizes that this isn't just about Ethan, it's about defining who she is outside of her family's expectations. She thinks back to everything they've been through together, from the chaos of the gala to the quiet moments that made her feel alive for the first time. Could she really walk away from that? And if she chooses Ethan, is she prepared to leave behind everything she's ever known? The answers aren't easy, but one thing becomes clear. Whatever path she chooses, it will change her life forever. Resolution. Redefining success. Victoria's decision comes not with a bang, but with a quiet certainty that settles over her, like dawn breaking after a long, restless night. She realizes that happiness isn't something her parents can buy for her. It's something she has to build herself. With Ethan by her side, she makes the hardest choice of her life. She walks away from the family fortune. It's not an easy decision, and it doesn't happen overnight. She spends weeks tying up loose ends, donating shares of her trust fund to charities close to her heart, and cutting ties with toxic influences in her social circle. Her parents are furious, calling her selfish and ungrateful, but Victoria stands firm. For the first time, she feels free. Ethan, too, undergoes his own transformation. Inspired by Victoria's courage, he begins to rebuild his life, not as the man he used to be, but as someone stronger and more grounded. He starts performing music again, this time not for spare change, but for passion. His songs, raw and heartfelt, resonate with people in ways they never did before. Together, Victoria and Ethan launch a community arts initiative aimed at helping underprivileged youth discover their creative potential. It's humble work compared to the billion-dollar deals Victoria once oversaw, but it fills her with a sense of purpose she's never felt before. Their new life isn't without challenges. There are days when money is tight, when old acquaintances look down on them, or when doubt creeps in. But through it all, they lean on each other, finding strength in their shared commitment to authenticity and love. One evening, as they sit on the rooftop of their modest apartment watching the sunset, Victoria turns to Ethan and says, "I don't miss it. The parties, the jewels, any of it. All I care about is us." Ethan smiles, pulling her closer. In that moment, they both know they've made the right choice. Their story becomes a quiet legend among those who hear it, a tale of two people who dared to defy convention and redefine what success truly means. To some reckless dreamers, to others, heroes. But to Victoria and Ethan, none of that matters. What matters is the life they've built together, a life rooted in love, creativity, and mutual respect. And though the road ahead won't always be smooth, they face it hand in hand, ready for whatever comes next. Food for thought. So what can we take away from Victoria and Ethan's journey? At its core, this is a story about courage. The courage to step outside the gilded cages we often trap ourselves in, whether they're made of wealth, expectations, or fear. It's a reminder that true happiness doesn't come from external validation, but from living authentically and embracing the people and passions that make us whole. Think about it. How often do we let societal pressures dictate our choices? How many times have we stayed in situations that felt safe but unfulfilling because stepping into the unknown seemed too risky? Victoria and Ethan's story challenges us to ask ourselves these questions, and to consider what we might gain if we had the bravery to follow our hearts instead of the crowd. But perhaps the most powerful lesson here is that love, real love, transcends labels and circumstances. It's not about where you come from or what you have, it's about connection, trust, and the willingness to grow together. Would you risk everything for a chance at love, even if it meant leaving behind comfort and security? Or would you stay trapped in a golden cage, wondering, what if? If this story resonated with you, leave your thoughts in the comments below. What would you have done in Victoria's shoes? And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another story. Until next time, keep dreaming boldly, and remember, sometimes the greatest adventures start with taking a leap of faith. Their story becomes a quiet legend among those who hear it, a tale of two people who dared to defy convention and redefine what success truly means. To some, they're reckless dreamers, to others, heroes. But to Victoria and Ethan, none of that matters. What matters is the life they've built together, a life rooted in love, creativity, and mutual respect. And though the road ahead won't always be smooth, they face it hand in hand, ready for whatever comes next.